So earlier today, at the end of my morning video, I revealed that Miss Abby Martin from the Empire Files has been attacked financially, sanctioned by the United States. The way and the method is the thing that should be the most frightening to you. If she had gotten kicked off Facebook or kicked off Twitter or YouTube because they didn't like her content or didn't like the tone she was using, that would be one thing. I'd say, well, you do have to let discretion be the better part of valor sometimes, regardless of what you think the truth to be. However, this case is entirely different. You see, Miss Martin has people that would love to finance her. She doesn't need advertising revenue. There are people out there ready to write the check and support the Empire Files and support Breaking the Set. But unfortunately, those people live in a country that is persona non grata. Now this is what I think might surprise my audience. You see, she's not who you really think she is. See, when you automatically think leftist, the binary thinkers in my audience are going to automatically assume that because she doesn't like the current administration, she therefore loved the person who was running against him. Just more binary thinking. Nothing could be further from the truth. She has investigated the left in America, the American left, extensively, and reported on their corruption over and over and over again. So this is the most terrifying thing to see, that now the government, the United States government, can seize money sent to people who they don't agree with, who they think are dangerous. This is not getting kicked off YouTube. This is not a private platform. This isn't YouTube saying, Abby Martin, sorry, you're not allowed. It's just a violation of your agreement. This isn't what's happening. This is the government stepping in. Our government stepping in and saying, any money coming to you from ABC Place, we are going to seize. And that is absolutely the most frightening thing that's happened in this country in a very, very long time. Earlier today, regarding that video, I was referred to as an anti-American Chavista, which is kind of funny because when I was in the military, there was no such thing as a Chavista. He hadn't come to power yet. And it's funny that a lot of people say, well, he just always sides with the enemies of the United States. Venezuela wasn't our enemy. We decided to make them an enemy. The one thing that I will say, and I hope if anyone from the Empire Files out there is listening, to not take this as anything other than constructive, is that sometimes, if you have a point to make, it's best to do it with facts instead of bombast. If you say that the U.S. has conducted this financial war, which they have, show the proof. Talking in 30-second sound bites plays their game. And just calling names plays their game. And what I've done here today, in the last half of this video, is that exact thing. I'm going to show you 5 or 6 different links to articles, things that were written about Venezuela, prior to Hugo Chavez taking power. These are all articles prior to 99, really. And I want my audience, and I'm going to link them. I'll put all the links in the description. To read through them, I won't have time to here. And tell me what you think really is the case now. So, here we go. We've been here before. This talks about the mudslides, the human disaster, 1998. 21 December 1999. Tens of, not hundreds of thousands of people died in these mudslides, where it's revealed here that 80% of Venezuela was in poverty, below the poverty line. And strangely enough, if you go to the World Factbook, this is the CIA World Factbook, and you look down here to unemployment rate, population below the poverty line, as of 2015, 19.7%. 2015 estimate. So you would have to, and you can read through this on CIA Factbook, and I'll link this and you can read it for yourself. The years after Chavez took power saw an incredible increase in the wealth in that country. And we've documented that over and over again using this chart. One thing I didn't show in this chart, clearly enough, I think, is that when you look here in 1980 and you watch the green lines, which are oil revenue, drop precipitously down here, look what happens next. New person takes over, pro-U.S. regime, and the revenues kind of eke back up, but giant spikes in inflation kill it. You see these spikes in the green in the oil revenue, how it always goes up and then for some reason it goes back down. It goes up and goes back down. It's only when you get to here that you see oil revenue go up and inflation stay down. And it goes up and it goes up. This is 2008 here. This is the U.S. crisis. Small hiccup in 2009, but right back up. But then all of a sudden, and we've covered this before ad nauseum about what happened in 14 and 15, U.S. lifting its ban, driving down the price of oil. I have another article that confirms this. And at the end, I'm going to show you something else that I think is probably going to very much surprise you. Here it talks about the nationalization of the oil industry in the 70s. See, there's been all sorts of different, this is Oxford Institute for Energy Studies. You see, there's been different definitions of what they've called nationalization. There's the idea of the profits being split and the idea of the total revenue being split. And this company called PDVSA, PDVSA, this company in charge of basically controlling the revenues of the oil of that country. It's not directly controlled by the government. And how infiltrated it was with big oil cronies who could move numbers around to say, oh, well, gosh, we didn't make any profit this year, when they had tons and tons and tons of revenue. This is the only part I'll read here for you, and it'll give you an idea of what was really going on in Venezuela at the time. Now, these are 1998 articles. In 1981, 19.1 billion of export sales generated 13.9 billion in royalties, roughly 71%. But in 2000, 27.3 billion of revenue, of proceeds, only generated 11.3 billion in revenue to the government. That means they were generating more outgo, but getting less of it. And this was what happened in the 90s when U.S. big oil started getting their people into this PDVSA company. And that's why Chavez went in and kicked out all these people. And you heard this thing called, whenever you hear the term brain drain, it was really corruption drain. the people who got caught with their hands in the cookie jar, who thought they were just going to get all these bonuses and kickbacks, when Chavez came in and Maduro came in and continued and said, oh, no, sorry, you're just going to get your salary. You're not going to get this extra little kickback you've been getting. That's why they left. And you're absolutely right about the people that had to take their place not being as good at their jobs. You're absolutely right. But they were also not on the payroll of big oil companies either. And I'll link this article, and you can see how it changed and the different techniques they used. Importing, quote unquote, importing costs. Outsourcing. The lower taxation. Basically, more money to the oil company, less money to Venezuela. Transfer pricing. Quotas. All of these different reasons. And this is all prior to Chavez. This is what was really going on in Venezuela. This is why Chavez was elected. See, most Americans don't understand, I'll have to do it in another video, the huge sea change that happened in Venezuela in 2000. There were two parties, like we had, that had ruled Venezuela for decades. COPEI, C-O-P-E-I, and Acción Democrática. They were the version of our left and right, and then some guy came in, Chavez, and got 60% of the vote. And the other two parties got 40 combined. It would be like a third party coming in right now and winning a landslide where the Republican and Democrat candidate only got combined 40% of the vote. This is what happened in Venezuela in 2000. And this was the result. Let me see if I can show you this. The result was this. Massive increase in revenue. And during this time, there was a huge increase in the standard of living in Venezuela. For the first time, people could send their kids to school with full lunch bags. They could think about putting their kids through college. They could have a decent car. They could have a decent job, a house. The government built millions of houses and offered free education. And one of the biggest recipients of that wealth was the Colombians. This is the most ironic thing about this, is that there was a huge war going on in the country right next door, and they had this huge stream of refugees coming into that country, and they never once said boo about it. They brought them in, and they gave them free healthcare, gave them free education, gave them places to stay. Gasoline was nearly free during this time. This was the great evil of Chavez. And this is why all of, well, I don't want to say something that's probably going to get me kicked off YouTube, but point being, I will link all these articles. And there's more than one, believe me. And they're not from partisan places. From the 90s, talking about all of the problems that were going on in Venezuela a long time before Chavez showed up. But do understand there's a war, and it's not just on the right. Like, share, subscribe.